All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are taking a deep dive into something I think we can all relate to, and that is how to stay focused, how to be productive, and how, well, not get distracted.
Yeah, I mean, in
That's
this
it.
day and age.
It is. It is. So, to help us out with this, we are going to be talking about Nir Eyal's book, Indistractable.
Great book.
Yeah, and we are also going to be looking at a podcast episode where he talks about the book in a little more detail. So hopefully, by the end of this deep dive, we can all be just a little bit better at managing all those distractions.
So to start off, I mean, like we all know, distractions are everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we are constantly bombarded with things pulling at our attention, like our phones, social media, emails. I
Like,
mean,
you name it.
uh,
There's just endless notifications, news feeds, and just stuff constantly trying to grab your attention.
right.
It's tough.
Yeah. But Nir Eyal, he kind of presents this really interesting perspective in his book. And he says it's not actually the distractions themselves, like the phone or whatever.
It's more like our reaction to those distractions, our inability to manage discomfort that leads us to actually want to seek them out.
Yeah, I think he's really onto something there. Like, think about it. When you reach for your phone or, you click on that next YouTube video or whatever it is, a lot of times it's because you're trying to avoid something else.
Right.
You're bored, you're stressed out, maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by a task. So your brain, it just like automatically looks for an escape, that little dopamine hit, and boom, you're distracted.
Oh, yeah, the dopamine. I mean, he really talks about that in the book. So what he does, though, is he gives us these four really, like, tangible strategies, like ways that we can actually combat this and become, like he calls it, indistractable.
Right.
And the first one is mastering internal triggers.
Mhm.
So basically, this is all about becoming more aware of what is actually causing you to get distracted in the first place.
Right. Like, what's that feeling? What's that discomfort that you're trying to escape from? You got to kind of pinpoint that.
Exactly, exactly. And then once you know what it is, then you can start to like manage it.
Yeah.
But so that's the first one. The second one is something he calls making time for traction, which is, I don't know, I kind of like this one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Because, he talks about how we schedule so many things in our lives, like meetings and appointments and even our workouts.
Yeah, we put it all on the calendar.
Yeah, we block out time for that. But what about the things that are really important to us, like our values, our goals, our relationships? We don't like formally schedule those things in.
Exactly. And that's where making time for traction comes in. It's about, taking control of your schedule and proactively planning time for the things that actually matter, the things that are going to move you forward.
So it's like being intentional with your time.
Absolutely.
I like that. Now, the third strategy, hacking back external triggers. This one seems like it's a little bit more about like controlling our environment, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is about, minimizing those external distractions, the things in your environment that are constantly vying for your attention. Think like turning off notifications, silencing your phone, creating a dedicated workspace, anything you can do to sort of minimize those external triggers.
So this is like, actually turning off the phone, putting it in a drawer,
Hmm.
and like physically removing those things.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the last strategy is preventing distraction with packs. Now, this one sounds a little bit more, I don't know, intense, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's all about using these, what he calls commitment devices, right? So these are basically like strategies or tools that you can use to kind of hold yourself accountable.
Okay. So it's like, making a pact with yourself almost.
Exactly. So this could be anything from, using an app that blocks distracting websites to, even telling a friend about your goal and asking them to hold you accountable.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's about finding ways to kind of remove the temptation and make it easier to stick to your intentions.
Okay. I like these. So, four strategies. They're all like a little bit different, but they all kind of aim at the same thing.
Mm.
But of all of these, we've talked about them all. Is there one in particular that you think is maybe the most powerful, or maybe the most like important one to start with?
I think they're all really important and they all kind of work together, but if I had to pick one, I'd say making time for traction is really key.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you're not intentional about how you spend your time, you're just going to get pulled in a million different directions.
Right.
And you're never going to make progress on the things that truly matter. So I think starting with like really being mindful of your schedule and making sure that you're carving out time for your values, your goals, that's a really powerful first step.
I completely agree. It's like if you're not in control of your time, then something else is. So you have to be the one that decides.
Exactly.
I like that. Now, one thing you keep saying, and he talks about it in the book, is traction. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about what that means in this context?
Yeah. Yeah. So traction is basically any action that moves you towards your goals.
Okay.
It's like, the opposite of distraction. So if distraction is pulling you away from what you want to achieve, traction is pulling you towards it.
So, very simply, if your goal is to finish writing a book, then, sitting down and actually writing would be traction.
Exactly. And checking social media during that time, well, that would be distraction.
Right. Okay. So it's pretty straightforward, but I think it's really helpful to have that distinction.
Definitely.
And I think, what's really empowering about all of this is that, like, we have the power to choose. We're not just victims of distraction. We can actually take control of our time and our attention.
I mean, that's really the key message here.
Right.
It's not about becoming some kind of productivity robot who never gets distracted. It's about understanding your own triggers, being intentional with your time, and making conscious choices about where you direct your attention.
Beautifully said. I completely agree. So, as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that becoming indistractable is really a journey.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a destination. It's something that we have to work at constantly. But the good news is that, with the right tools and strategies and by understanding ourselves a little bit better, we can all make progress.
Absolutely.
So I want to leave our listeners with a little bit of homework. What's one small change that you can make this week to try to prioritize traction over distraction? Maybe it's scheduling 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to work on a project, or maybe it's just being more mindful of how you're feeling when you reach for your phone. Whatever it is, just try to be a little bit more intentional with your time and your attention, and I think you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish.
You've got this.
And that's it for this deep dive. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.